Hi everyone, for those who don't know me, my name's Jamie Forsyth and I work for Amy on the Staffordshire Highways contract. I'm currently Wellbeing Ambassador and one of about 40 mental health first aiders. I'm also a qualified mental health first aid instructor and accredited by Mental Health First Aid England to deliver their courses. And it was kind of with that experience in mind, as well as the uncharted waters we're all kind of sailing through at the moment with COVID-19, I thought it'd be a great idea to produce a series of short videos offering help, guidance, tips, coping strategies that are potentially going to help us through this difficult time. I think now is more important than ever for anyone with experience that they think might benefit others to share that. So with that in mind, the first video I wanted to produce was about our stress containers. So the stress container, what is it? So every day, each and every one of us faces various stresses of life. These are known as stressors. And during the day or the week or however long it may be, these will start to begin to fill a container that we all have inside of us. Now, the size of this container will depend on the person's tolerance to stress. So for example, if you've got a high tolerance to stress, you can have a large container and you can hold all of these life stress factors. If you have a low tolerance to stress, then your container is going to be smaller and you won't be able to hold so many of those factors. The day-to-day stresses are enough to deal with as it is, let alone when we're all going through something like COVID-19, which is why it's so important to talk about it, because these stresses become magnified. Now, the size of any person's stress container is dictated by that person's individual experiences to date, and that means it's totally unique to each person. For example, I used to be a prison officer, and what was stressful for that role is completely different to what is stressful for my role now. Now, I think I can handle stress in certain situations way better than certain people because of that role as a prison officer. And I'm sure that the people who've spent all their working life in an office that can deal with the stresses of office life better than I can, which just goes to show that it's individual. So to explain this properly, I want you to imagine that stress is going into a container like water. So if we take this cup, that's our stress container, and the water in this jug is the stresses we face, the stressors. Now, during the day, each little stressor, whether it's work, family life, or anything like that, is going to slowly fill up your container. Now, a work event for someone might fill your container up that much. However, for another person, that same event might fill it up that much. Now, that goes again to show that it's totally individual. Now, eventually, if enough of these stressors go throughout the day, then it's going to overflow, and that's when emotional snapping occurs. So, how do we stop our stress containers from overflowing and leading to emotional snapping? Now, there are plenty of helpful coping mechanisms that you can put in place which will act like a tap. So when your stress is flowing into your container, you turn your tap on with these helpful coping mechanisms and it helps the stress run out the bottom of the container. Now, these are things like exercise, healthy eating, spending time with your family and friends, doing hobbies, meditation, and the more of these you have in place, the more likely you've got of keeping that tap on and keeping the stress from gathering. So if we go back to the cup and we show the example of the stress going into the cup day to day, then if you turn your tap on and start using your helpful coping mechanisms, then that water is going to start running out the bottom, which means that even though stress is going in, stress is being relieved at the bottom, so your container is never overflowing. But on the other hand, there are plenty of unhelpful coping mechanisms that can block your tap and even add more stress to your container. Things like worrying excessively over work and taking your mind off stress that way, doing more work, lack of sleep, self-medication, taking drugs and alcohol. These can all block up that tap. So again, using the cup as an example, if we're pouring them in and we're letting them out, but then we're suddenly using the unhelpful coping mechanisms, it's blocking that tap and it's ultimately leading the cup to overflow. All of us will use unhelpful coping mechanisms at some point, and that's okay. I'm sure we all enjoy a glass of wine at the end of the day sometimes when we've had a stressful day, and that's in moderation, but it's important to get that balance right and that we have more helpful strategies than we have unhelpful, so the tap is always open. So regardless of how much stress is going in, we know that there's plenty of it going out at the same time and not leading it to overflow. So my advice to you would be, if you feel stressed anytime soon, then think about the stress container and what's in it and what you can potentially do to open that tap. So using the stress container really helps to understand your own stresses and the signs you might be close to emotional snapping. But it also helps us understand what other people might be going through when their stress container is full. Now, I hope this video helped you understand how potentially to control your stress levels. And like I say, we're all currently going through uncharted water with COVID-19. Now, I would like to do some more of these videos if you think they would be helpful. Any feedback would be great. And if anybody wants a particular subject covering, then I'm more than happy to do that. So I'll just leave it by saying, take care, stay safe, and please help each other. Thank you.